Manasseh and Ephraim, two brothers with a history woven into the ancient tales of the Bible, have a legacy intertwined with the development of the people of Israel. Their father, Joseph, was no ordinary man. He rose to the position of governor in Egypt, a role of immense influence and power. Their mother, Asenath, also came from a prominent position, being the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. This couple, though from notably different backgrounds, came together, and from their love, these two sons were born. The story of these brothers is not just a chronicle of their lives, but is also interwoven with significant moments of the Israelites, as they become the patriarchs of two tribes of Israel. The book of Genesis, specifically in chapters 41 and 48, captures the essence of their narrative. Here, not only their birth moments are discussed, but also a significant blessing they received from their grandfather, Jacob. Focusing on Manasseh, the name itself gives a hint about his story. It means, he who makes forget. Joseph, in naming him, expressed that God had helped him forget his pain and suffering, as well as complications with his family. Manasseh was born in a time of prosperity, right before Egypt plunged into a severe famine, during a period when Joseph had already achieved a high-ranking position, being second in command after the Pharaoh. On the other hand, Ephraim, the second son of Joseph and Asenath, has a name that speaks of fertility and prosperity, stemming from a root meaning, to be fruitful. At his birth, Joseph expressed that God had made him fruitful in his land of suffering. Like his brother, Ephraim was born during a period of abundance in Egypt, prior to the upcoming years of scarcity. While the Bible doesn't provide a deep insight into the individual lives of Manasseh and Ephraim, it does showcase the moment Jacob, their grandfather, bestowed upon them a blessing that would be remembered and cited throughout future generations of Israelite history. This act was not merely symbolic, but wove an integral part into the narrative of the development and identity of the people of Israel. Although precise details of Ephraim's personal life are limited in the Bible, his significance in history is particularly emphasized in a pivotal episode, the moment he and his brother Manasseh received blessings from their grandfather, Jacob. The story begins to hold special weight when Jacob, on his deathbed, decides to bless his descendants, a tradition that would resonate in the family's future, and thereby, in the tribes of Israel. Joseph, father of Manasseh and Ephraim, becomes particularly central when, instead of Reuben and Simeon, Jacob's eldest sons, he receives the birthright, an unusual shift due to the reprehensible actions of these two. Reuben made a grave mistake by getting involved with Bilhah, Jacob's concubine. And Simeon, along with his brother Levi, took violent retaliation against the Shechemites following a heinous act against their sister, Dinah. If you seek more depth about Dinah's story, there are additional resources that will allow you to better understand the magnitude of these events in the family context. Against this backdrop of disgrace and violence, Joseph becomes Jacob's spiritual and material successor, receiving a blessing that also spills over to his sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Jacob, in his wisdom and guided by his faith, decides to recognize these grandsons as if they were his own children, assigning them the position of leaders and founders of future tribes of Israel. This act wasn't just symbolic, but outlined the structure and lineage that would define the nation of Israel in the years to come. The biblical account describes this thrilling moment with intense and emotional words. Jacob, though weakened, gathers strength to convey these significant words and blessings to Joseph and his sons. The promise of prosperity and of a land that would belong to their descendants forever is projected, not only as a statement of faith, but also as an unbreakable bond connecting generations. But there's a peculiar twist in this tale. When the time for blessings comes, Jacob places his right hand on the younger, Ephraim, and his left on the elder, Manasseh, symbolizing a greater blessing for the former, contrary to the traditions of the time that favored the firstborn. This act, meticulously documented in Genesis 48:8-16, demonstrates how these biblical stories not only describe events but also reveal deep layers of meaning and divine purpose that unfold across generations and the decisions of their protagonists. This episode and the family's journey through faith, error, and redemption become a tapestry narrating how the roots of the tribes of Israel were established and blessed, playing a fundamental role in shaping a nation and its relationship with the divine. In the final moments shared between Jacob, also known as Israel, and his beloved son Joseph, a touching story of blessings and prophecies is woven. Although Israel's eyes had become weak with age, an unbreakable glow of love and faith illuminated that scene in which he drew his grandsons, Manasseh and Ephraim, to him, kissing and embracing them tenderly. Israel's voice, broken yet firm, confessed to Joseph that he never expected to see his face again, yet God granted him the grace to know his offspring. The episode becomes even more intriguing when Israel proceeds to bless Joseph's sons. The latter, aware of conventions and the primacy of the firstborn, positions his sons, placing Ephraim, the younger, on his father's right and Manasseh, the elder, on his left. However, in an act laden with intent and defying norms, Jacob crossed his arms, placing his right hand on Ephraim and the left on Manasseh. The ensuing blessing was not merely a pious act, but also a prophecy, in which the destiny of their descendants was foreseen. Invoking the journey of Abraham and Isaac with God and the protection he provided him throughout his life, Israel blessed the boys so that his name and those of their fathers would be remembered through them, projecting them to grow like fish in abundance in the land. When Joseph observed his father's surprising act in giving the primary blessing to the younger, he tried to correct Jacob's hand placement. Still, there was already divine wisdom behind this action. Jacob declared that although Manasseh would be great, his younger brother Ephraim would become even more prominent. Thus, throughout the Old Testament's biblical history, Ephraim's descendants stand out for their superiority over Manasseh, fulfilling the prophecy spoken in that emotional encounter. Despite the greatness of Manasseh and Ephraim, the story of another Manasseh is also introduced, a king of Judah, son of Hezekiah, who lived centuries after the original Manasseh, Jacob's grandson. While the names are identical, it's vital to distinguish between these two figures, not to intertwine their stories and contexts, as they are entirely different. On the other hand, Ephraim also plays a prominent role in the Book of Chronicles. There his descendants are recorded, and specific episodes are mentioned, such as the tragedy of his sons, Ezer and Eliad, and the lineage of Malah that preceded Joshua. However, it's challenging to determine if the mentioned Ephraim is directly Joseph's son or a later descendant. I hope this presentation has been useful to you, and if you found it interesting, I encourage you to share it with your loved ones, family, and friends, so they can also benefit from this fascinating story. Until next time, and may God bless you.